You have to ask Nans what he thinks of this movie.
I do. Nans, what do you think of this movie?
It has some nostalgia for me.
Nostalgia.
Wait, hold
I
on.
have no
it's
nostalgia for this movie.
Let the Nans speak.
I'm thinking 19. Above, you only live twice.
Okay.
So you're where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue that. I really am not going to argue you guys.
But I need an explanation in terms of the plot. So we start in North Korea. So
How did they surf to the beach? Plot hole.
That doesn't make sense if you actually want to talk about that. I mean the bad guy plot, because the bad guy plot, generally speaking, is like what really cuts the mustard for most Bond films.
So he dies.
He dies.
He dies.
Disappears.
Probably went to Cuba, got the reconstruction face surgery,
Yes.
modeled himself off of James Bond because he says that in the movie.
We only met briefly, you and I. But you left a lasting impression. You see, when your intervention forced me to present the world with a new face, I chose to model the disgusting Gustav Graves on you. That unjustifiable swagger, your crass quips, a defense mechanism concealing such inadequacy.
My defense mechanism is right here.
I like that. I appreciate that he says that because that implies this connection between them. It's always good. It's always a plus to have that.
He used the diamond connection from Sierra Leone.
Few men have the guts to trade conflict diamonds since the UN embargo.
They're blood
They're
diamonds.
remarketed as Gustav Graves.
From the Graves Corporation in Iceland. A man called Gustav Graves discovered diamonds there a year or so ago.
Yet they're identical to conflict diamonds.
He's laundering diamonds.
And then
Yes.
he's off the map for 14 months, just like Bond. Did he have a lot of this already kind of being set up? Or
We don't
did he
know.
pull all of this off in 14 months? The having a mine, building Icarus.
It's probably during
like-
those 14 months.
Wow. He's a go-getter.
He's a go-getter.
Yeah, that's why they wrote in there that he never sleeps, to basically cover up how he got all of this done so quickly.
You seem to work 24/7. Is it true that you don't need sleep?
The insomnia is permanent for me. One of the virtues of never sleeping, Mr. Bond. I have to live my dreams.
So here's the thing, Nance. In the opening, he says,
I have special plans for this consignment.
implying that he already had a plan to make
Okay.
a diamond laser satellite out of conflict diamonds. But all the stuff with like becoming Gustav Graves and all that, that's something that's kind of odd, but I'm willing to accept it because I think he already had his diamond scheme set and ready to go. And then once he, quote, died, he needed a new identity. And if he survived, why didn't he just go back to his dad? And I can't wait for some idiotic YouTuber to take on this whole movie for their stupid ass white privilege movie essay where they're like, he needed to become white in order to be privileged enough to start up his own business and be this like wealthy billionaire. And that's where it's kind of ridiculous.
But I do think a part of it is he was trained in Western philosophies, and it's kind of like
get to the white privilege so I can monetize the diamonds.
He doesn't look white enough like I do.
I would see it more in black and white in the fact that, like, of course, they're using this storyline based off Hugo Drax's storyline in the books, but it's also like, okay, if you're a guy from South Korea who's already been Western trained, like he already knows all this stuff.
North Korea?
Yeah, he's from North Korea. But he knows all this stuff. I think it's probably makes sense for him to be like, if I put on the guise of this white rich billionaire from London, like no one's really going to know who I am. And I'm probably going to be more successful than if I'm trying to come from South Korea or North Korea and be like, oh, I'm this North Korean guy and I'm trying to do this because there's already a red flag there.
But McCurdy,
But to
that
put the
doesn't
idea-
change the fact that he could have just gotten all of his diamonds and made his satellite, which was clearly his plan when he says, I have special plans, was he was
Sure.
going to make his diamond satellite.
We need to tread carefully. Graves is politically connected.
What a wonderful day to become a knight.
I agree with you on the Hugo Drax point because being a famous industrialist celebrity type kept him protected from suspicion.
PM would have my head if he knew you're investigating him.
On behalf of the British government,
I apologize.
But in terms of creating the satellite, creating Icarus, going back to Diamonds Are Forever, Blofeld needed the billions of dollars from Willard White because Blofeld didn't have Spectre anymore. How else was he going to make his diamond satellite? Whereas here, what if Colonel Moon had just gone back to his dad and then gotten all of his diamonds and made his satellite in North Korea? What was it about being Gustav Graves that allowed him to create the satellite?
Hold on. I think that was because, as someone from the East, I was trained under the West to understand your ideology, to use your ideology to best you guys, to destroy you. I used this guise of Richard Branson, Virgin Mobile guy, to become one of you. And I've used that to be able to get investors and use those capitalists to make this sun satellite with diamonds.
Sure.
To use it to destroy you guys so I can actually defeat the West in South Korea.
Okay.
That as Gustav Graves, as this masked character, he could get investors and people who would be like, oh, you're trying to create a new sun for like, we could do all this. Basically the
environmentalism stuff.
The environmentalism.
You have no idea how much Icarus is about to change your world.
He could sell that idea to Western investors and be like, yeah, this is what we're going to be doing. And they'd be like, oh, that sounds so great, you know?
But that's all assuming that he didn't have any money. But we know he has money because he's been laundering diamonds.
Orphan working in an Argentinian diamond mine, learns engineering, makes a huge find in Iceland, and gives half of it to charity.
And what's that little property I noticed next door?
The diamond mine.
I think it's a front for laundering African conflict diamonds.
There is a ridiculous quality to it, but I'm okay with it simply because they already had planted the seeds of he knew what he was going to do with the diamonds.
Now, diamonds aren't just expensive stones. They are the stuff of dreams and the means to make dreams real.
I mean, really, I guess when it comes down to it, he just needed to get out from under the wing of his father so that he could go make what he wanted to make and then bring it back to North Korea and then get the generals on his side, I guess.
And now the hardliners have their proof. We cannot trust the West.
Moon's father won't let this turn into a war.
General Moon's under arrest. The hardliners staged a coup last night.
On that note, though, there is that stuff about Icarus that is at least appropriate, that they would invoke the story of Icarus, which is father and son. They're escaping from a prison, and they do so with these wax wings. The father's like, don't fly too close to the sun. The son's like, F you, Dad. I'm going to fly as high as I want. His wings melt. He falls back to the earth, and he dies. And it's a story about hubris. And obviously, if anybody has hubris, it's fucking Gustav Graves. But of course, it's mixed in with a little patricide. The fun little twist that the writers put on this story is that instead of the whole flying too close to the sun idea, it's Gustav becomes the sun. He takes on the power of the sun, and then you got your double meaning with sun and sun.
My son. Watch the rising of your sun.
It's neat. It works. Honestly, the only thing too goofy about it is that he looks like a comic book bad guy because he's wearing Icarus.
The whole idea of him having this armor.
Well, he has the Nintendo Power Glove, and then he turns into RoboCop.
The armor thing is stupid.
Yes.
It's, and there's a line where he says something about like,
Vlad, does the word ergonomics mean anything to you? This is still a suitcase. Finish it, will you?
Lee Tormere, he's a Kiwi, which we all know that Kiwis are crazy. He wanted him to have like this effects armor on, which is not really practical in any sense. It's just kind of silly. And it's got glasses and it can electrocute people and it also controls the laser. So for whatever reason, it's not a laser. But for whatever reason, when you destroy the armor, it stopped the laser, that's not how that would work. That doesn't make any sense. Because like, if I want to be really nerd about it, remember, this is a satellite in space that is directing sunlight and redirecting it towards the Earth in a concentrated fashion. And to destroy the control chip that does that is not going to instantly stop the satellite from positioning itself in the same position.
It also has an automatic mode.
They launched against Icarus.
Leave it on automatic.
So don't you think no matter what happens to Gustav, it could just remain in automatic? In which case, the worst thing you could possibly do would be to destroy its controller?
That doesn't make sense.
My biggest gripe is the Americans shooting one missile at it and it failing and then being like, well, tell the South Koreans.
Like send multiple
Shoot like
missiles.
5 of them.
Yeah, send a whole bunch to go to flank it and circle back around and hit it from the rear.
Shoot more than one.
But the thing about the armor is, I assume that it's a reference to Icarus wearing his wing device,
Which is completely unnecessary for this movie.
but the same core story of not listening to your father and flying too close to the sun and therefore being punished for your hubris is right there.
And the West will shake with fear.
The Americans with their nuclear warheads.
Icarus will swat them from the sky.
You will destroy us.
That's another one of those moments where I'm like, clearly the original script was a little smarter, and then it got bogged down by a bunch of stupid shit.
Actually, you'd be wrong. Icarus was not originally intended to be the name of the satellite. It was actually going to be Solaris. But the problem was there was already a Solaris movie in production, which is a remake of a Russian.
It was a remake.
It was a remake of a Russian
Okay.
film called Solaris.
Yeah.
And so they were going to reuse the name Solaris as the satellite.
But Icarus is appropriate because it's a story of a father and son.
They have the same goal, but the son goes about it in a completely different method than the father.
50 years after the superpowers carved Korea in two.
I know all about the UN. I studied at Oxford and Harvard.
I hoped a Western education would help him become a bridge between our worlds.
Majored in Western hypocrisy.
From your modest little collection of cars, I would never have guessed.
But all it did was to corrupt him.
Let me put it this way. Neil Purvis and Robert Wade, they know their history. They know ancient mythology. Again, there's a reason why they named Electra, and there's a reason why they invoke Icarus in this movie. They're aware of these old stories. My point being that clearly the writers are smart dudes, and then they are subject to these producers and directors who take what they write and f it up entirely.